WebKit GTK was 8 hours, and it was funny because I said I started the final compile, just got to WebKit GTK. This might take a while, and it generated a lot of feedback. Okay, so STQN came back and said that's what he bought the Ryzen 7800X 3D in Part 4 to wreck through these packages.
It burns through it a lot faster. You're not wrong.
That I can't say jack about this though, because I buy stupid hardware for the same exact. Why am I buying a mini PC?
I don't know.
For fun.
I do need another machine, but I don't need one of those necessarily.
Right. I don't know that I need a 7800X 3D because I have a 5800X that I could whatever, and I think maybe what I could do is like set up a Gentoo VM on that box to fire up to participate in dist CC, which is what Raptor mentioned.
Yep.
He said generally it's threads -2. And that's where I've got it. I've got it on 2 or 3 threads. I don't know. But that's where I've got it. But I don't think he knew that I had a little baby CPU.
Yeah.
And so Lean said WebKit GTK is peanuts nowadays. So WebKit GTK, which took approximately 8 hours on this box, is small?
I guess. Well,
woof.
Maybe compared to what it used to be? I don't know.
Well, I asked, that's small? And they came back and said Qt Web Engine.
Oh, yeah.
And the worst is Chromium. And I get that. That's actually something that I've seen multiple times. People complaining about the size of Chromium or the compile time of Chromium, man. I thought that one was funny. And Juice Truce, I could implement binaries, but that's no fun.
That's well, I mean, I guess that's the modern way they're keeping this relevant. I don't think performance is the thing.
Not anymore. It's control. Coming up in this episode, you think Larry uses Firefox? The compiled history of Gentoo, and how we emerged from the year-long journey with him. Welcome to Linux User Space. I'm Leo.
And I'm Dan.
Dan, you know what we haven't done for quite a few episodes is a Mozilla Watch. And specifically like a browser watch, right?
We have not. Yeah, so, here right to your face, we're going to talk about some current stuff.
Yeah, there you were thinking they're going to do like 4 episodes and not do a Mozilla. Gotcha.
Yep, boom.
Snuck it in right at the end. We're doing a Mozilla Watch right here, right now, on the season finale of Linux User Space.
But this is big news, Leo. Big news.
Will it convince anybody, though? I've heard the Mozilla Firefox naysayers for so long, for years and years and years, talking about how Mozilla and Firefox are going down.
There are some pundits. Yep, not going to refute that. So, but I think these things here in this news might actually bring some people around. At least I hope so.
I hope so too, because I haven't left Firefox. But these are also very welcome features for me as well. Because for some reason, every month or so, I do this history thing, and I end up with 7 gajillion tabs, and so that's nice. That we get maybe a little tab management.
Yeah, that's actually one of the biggest lead topics here, I would say, is tab grouping and vertical tabs. And the sidebar to keep all of the tab stuff organized. I'm super excited. It might even drag me away from Vivaldi a little bit.
Oh,
but I don't know. I mean, they got. Yeah, it depends on how they implement this and how much I like it, right? So,
well, for more than one season, I know that you've said that you've been using Vivaldi as your default. So that's those are big words.
They are big words, and I use it for the show a lot because of all the tabs, like you say, that you get going, and having them stacked and, grouped, all of those things, tile tabs, that could come. They didn't talk about that, but maybe that
hold on, wait. I know Mozilla doesn't, or Firefox doesn't have it. What's a tile tab? What is that? What?
So you could tile 2 tabs or 3 tabs. You can tile multiple tabs in Vivaldi.
Oh,
stack them side by side, right in the one browser window, not have a separate browser. And I don't need a separate window at that point. So, hopefully using less resources in order to make that, happen.
Okay, right. Yeah. So using less than 84 gigs of RAM to run a modern web browser with modern web page. Right. Okay. Maybe we can cut that down by about 512 megs.
That's not what they're talking about here, with at least not yet. But they're talking about grouping in vertical tabs, and that's a big thing to keeping tabs organized. So these are welcome changes in my book.
So let's look at tab grouping. I kind of already do that with multi-account containers.
Yeah,
but
that's one way.
Okay, so I think this tab grouping, though, is a lot more like the Vivaldi way of tab grouping, where how does Vivaldi actually do the tab grouping thing?
I mean, so Vivaldi has the stack of tabs, and so they're grouping a stack. I mean, I don't know what exactly Mozilla's planning yet, but the stacked is basically a group. I can have all of my tabs up there at the top, and then if I click on one of them, it can come down to the next level and have a whole bunch more tabs. So that's kind of nice. I like that a lot, especially when I've got one topic. I can put them all in the stack, and so I can say, Gentoo history could be a whole group, or
yeah, because that's slightly different than what I do with the multi-account containers, right? Because that's more about keeping a profile together,
right,
and making sure that you're logged into the right things, and then you separate out. So if you're logged into one Gmail on one account, one multi-account, then you can be logged into a different Gmail account on a different multi-account, and they look different in the actual listing of tabs there.
Right.
So the tab grouping would be another way. A separate way to say, not only am I in this multi-account, I'm also grouping these particular tabs together because I'm doing this one job.
Yeah, and however you logically want to put that together, right? I mean, so maybe you got a work group and a home group, and so then instead of closing and everything, you could just have all of the things that you got going on at work, and then when you're done with that, you can go over to your home thing, provided you use the same computer.
I see.
So just however you want to logically group them together. And I think there isn't a great way to do that right now, right?
Got it. Right. Okay. And then, so we're talking also vertical tabs. This is something that
a lot of browsers have now. Yeah.
This has been a very big request from people. You can do it with an extension. Right, you can go out to the extension website, download one that'll do it for you. But now we're talking, this is actually baked in.
Yeah, first-class citizen.
Yeah, and this is something Vivaldi's had for a very, very long time. I think even Edge has had it for quite a while.
Pretty close to after they announced it, honestly. I think they had the vertical tabs. Maybe even when they announced it initially. I'm not sure. It wasn't long anyway. So those are some welcome changes, I feel like.
And then we've got a sidebar to be able to handle all of the plethora of tabs. And they even link the article in PC Mag where Hazel, the Firefox user, had 7,400 more than 7,400 browser tabs open for 2 years.
Wow.
And then Firefox crashed, but yet they were able to bring back all the tabs. What?
Wow. Yeah, no, that's intense.
Yeah, so I would need some kind of management system. How would you even keep that together? How?
I don't know. That's a lot of clicking. Well, because when you get too many of them, they get so tiny, and then all of a sudden you get that other drop down thingy, and then you're scrolling, right?
Yeah,
forever.
So you're already in a situation where it's like you can't even. It's just icons at one point, right? Like once you get so many, it's just icons.
So small, yeah, you can't see them. But then,
Right.
you've got to go to the list. That's the only way you're going to know which thing you're after.
So when I've got like 87 different Gentoo tabs open, like it's I can't tell what the difference is, and then you're in a situation where there's just so I don't know how you do that.
No, even with a management system, I don't know how you manage that.
But wow.
But, it's good to know that if you've got a bunch of them, you can keep it kind of organized and keep yourself, productive.
Kind of organized. You keep lying to yourself, Dan.
Usually.
There's no organization to that at this point.
No. So the next new thing is the profile management system, which that's kind of interesting, really, because Chrome's got this, Edge has got this. They all have different browser profiles, and you can switch between them, whatever, depending on which thing you're working on. Firefox doesn't really have that right now. They just got the one that you could sign into, and you can log out and log into another one, but it's just not easy management to make that happen.
Yeah. Multi-account containers kind of split the difference on that, where you just had one big browser, and then you had different colored tabs to help you differentiate what's what.
Yep.
But this is a full-on, here's a window to help you stay focused.
Right.
Here's a window to help you not stay focused. You know?
Right. So
you can do that kind of thing.
I agree. Yeah. So that's kind of cool too. So
I like that. I like that a lot. And then you get intuitive privacy settings that deliver all the power of our world-class anti-tracking technologies in a simplified, easy-to-understand way. I didn't think it was unintelligible, but I did normally just go in there and just hit
block it all.
Strict one.
Yep.
Yeah. Like don't even ask at all. Just make it strict by default, and that's the one I want.
Yep.
I like that as well. And then they also mention more streamlined menus that reduce visual clutter and prioritize top user actions so you can get the important things quicker. I don't know how many times I've touched that hamburger menu, but I guess for people that do, that's cool.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that have complained about some of the menu structures and whatnot. So it's nice that they're cleaning that up, right? Just get a little polish on that.
Is it?
It's nice that they're polishing? Yeah, I think so.
Well, yes, it's nice that they're polishing, but
I don't know. There's a couple. It's just, I don't know. Could probably use a little cleanup.
This is an audience question. So when you hit the hamburger menu, what is it that's clutter? Because maybe this is just me, Windows 3.1, GNOME 2, KDE 3 kind of guy, where, all you get is an entire list of 78 options. And I'm just used to that maybe. But like what?
I think it's the ones that have like the 2-part menu thing that people complain about. They'd like to either, get it reduced down to the single menu item or put it into like a deeper settings thing, like the settings, rather than, like if you go down to like the help, for example, it opens up another menu structure.
Yeah.
Instead of just being right there in front of your face.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe, I think the more...
But I think this is...
The more used items are maybe a little buried for some people, if that makes sense, right?
Okay,
you have to do the
bringing some of the options to the front, sure.
Right, your forefront, right? And so rather than having all that double-step menu thing, maybe they could clean those up a little bit.
I could see that. I could see bringing more options to the front.
Yeah.
But maybe this is just something I need to hear from, like, what specifically would you consider clutter in the menu? Here's
the other thing. Like, do you need the add-ons? Like, for example, in the hamburger menu, you've got add-ons and themes. Well, that's also in settings. Do you need that in the forefront? I don't know that you do, right? Because I guess it's a thing, but
it's the little puzzle piece thing, right?
Yeah, because it's up there too. It's not just it's in the hamburger menu. It's up there in the icons. It's also in the settings. So that's 3 different ways to get to the same thing. They probably only need 1 or 2.
Okay, good point. I'll take that. That's for sure. Like there should just be one way to do the thing. Because in that like the crux of Linux too, it's like where there's no one way to do the thing, and so you can't actually tell anybody how to do the thing because you don't know exactly how their system is set up, and so you're just like, well, now you gotta open the terminal, and that's like the Achilles heel. That's why nobody uses. That's not why nobody uses Linux, but that's why nobody uses Linux. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Streamlining that probably okay. Yep.
I got that. And then there's a bunch of performance stuff, faster, smoother browsing on Firefox thanks to quicker page loads and startup times, and all while saving more of your phone's battery life. I suppose that's probably going to come to Android first. We're only in the talking prototyping stage of because it's available now, where you can use your own engine on iOS.
Right.
So that is a thing. I know Microsoft, not them, Mozilla is looking into bringing the engine over. But again, like, how many iOS users actually care what the engine is doing in the background, right?
No, but if it performs better, they might like it.
Now that is a huge thing. But if it performs worse,
well, they won't like it.
Exactly. That's going to lose you users.
So you better make sure it works, I guess, when you flip the switch. Yeah.
Yeah. The tiny sliver of people that don't use Safari, right?
Right.
Tyranny of the default, man. But if there's a choice, okay, keep who you can. So
yeah, I think those are good things. Like, I mean, focusing on the browser. Whoa.
Yeah. And the last thing they mentioned in the article is that they're looking into AI. All right. I know.
Yep. Lots of people not on the AI train. Although Leo and I have pitched it only if it happens in certain ways. And
exactly. Like, I don't need Google telling me to add Elmer's glue to my pizza to keep the cheese on the pizza, right? To keep keep the cheese from sliding off the pizza. I get it. Yes.
It's probably non-toxic, but I don't think that makes it tasty.
Yeah, well, yeah, just because it says it's non-toxic doesn't mean it's good for you. So, keep it away from my pizza. No.
Exactly.
No. Just the Parmesan and the Romano, please.
Yeah, use the cheese for the glue, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? But one of the cool things, and this is actually one of the very specific things I said that AI can do for us right now, is AI-generated alt text for images. But not just any old image, because I think the web is getting better at.
Yeah, the web is taking care of that for you. You're getting served that stuff with the alt text anyway, right?
Right. But specifically in the PDFs that Firefox is rendering for you in browser, you're getting AI-generated alt text for images. And I think in a lot of cases, it's better to have some alt text than to have no alt text. Just to know that there's an image there, but not know what it is.
Yeah, it's a PDF, so, there's probably some text around the image already. And so you could do a little OCR stuff, snip out some of the highlights potentially, and if AI is tuned well enough, it can apply some of those probably things to the image, right? Provided it can figure it out. And, Mozilla and Firefox, they keep tweaking the PDF component of the browser, and they might be one of the better than some of the other PDF readers that are out there. They've done a lot of work with the text input, like for forms, and so you can fill out your forms, PDF forms.
I don't think you need Adobe Reader anymore, like on Windows and Mac machines.
I guess that's where I'm going. You don't need the proprietary Adobe stuff to actually function for the most part. And
beautiful.
So Mozilla is helping you with that.
Yeah. So I'll leave you with a question, because I've always thought that Firefox and Mozilla in general have been doing a good job. They've been a good steward, not always, right, but generally a good steward of all of the donations they get. What is Firefox missing at this point? Because I still see that there's tons of Chrome users in the Linux community. There's still tons of Chromium users. There's still a ton of even Edge, weirdly enough, Brave and Vivaldi.
Right.
What is Firefox missing for you? Is it feasible to say, if Firefox added this one thing, I would come back. Is there that thing? Because I feel like they're doing a pretty good job adding stuff, and they have been over the years.
Yeah, they have. I really like this focus that they're applying here, rather than some of those third-party thingies that they've ventured off into and then come back and said, that wasn't a good idea. I'm excited for these changes. It's my number 2 already, and maybe it'll make it my number 1 when they implement some of these things. I don't know. It's got a possibility.
Ooh. Vertical tabs just sound fun.
They're cool.
I love my vertical screen real estate. I don't have a cool vertical monitor to not care. So that would be a nice little thing, because I already go into the about config and like squish it down a little bit.
Yep.
You can do the density and squish it down. And if you didn't know that, you can go into about config and type in density and then UI density and then add a 1. And I know it's like 14 pixels, but I want those. Yeah. So give me.
It takes that padding out, that you got space, so you can get rid of the space and just put the heart of the content right in your face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like the option. That's really cool. So, but yeah, let me know. What is it? What is it that's keeping you away from Firefox? Why is it not good enough for you?
Yeah. We want to know. So if you like looking at our face,
I'm looking at Dan's face. He's looking pretty good.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, you can find it on YouTube. That's youtube.com/LinuxUserspace. Or you can find it at linuxuserspace.show/YouTube. That's another way to get there. And, you can catch all the video content over there. If you just want the history bits
coming up,
you can catch those over at Tillvids. Tillvids is the place that, edutainment. That's what they bill that as. So
that's right.
That's why we try to give you the history bits over there, and they're a great host to our content, and we're really appreciative. So give them some support, and if you want to give us some support directly, you can do that over at Patreon. That's linuxuserspace.show/Patreon, and you give us $1 and keep us going, and we'll do these things going forward. And
that's right. You got to fund that barbecue.
Yeah, the barbecue. I think that might happen.
There's gonna be a barbecue. We gotta have like a barbecue, like smoked meats somewhere, and we gotta figure out how to do that. Yeah. So fund it over at Patreon.
Yeah, well,
buy me meat.
On top of that, you get some value add. You get early access to episodes. You get high quality audio. You get, I don't know, all sorts of things. You get access to our Lemmy instance if you wanted to, experiment with Lemmy. You could go sign up over there if you're a patron, and we'll get you signed up.
And one of the questions that I saw is, if you sign up with us over on Lemmy, you do get the full Lemmy experience. You just get a really cool email style ending,
right,
to show that you're supporting the show. So, I mean, like it says your whatever you create at lemmy.linuxuserspace.show, so that whenever you post on lemmy.world or lemmy.ml or bhaw or wherever
you go,
you've got that cool trailing that shows that this is where you came from.
Exactly.
And by the way, Dan's the one over here bench pressing that server, making sure that thing is staying up to date mostly. And
yeah, we have held off on some updates, but we're not that far behind, honestly. And looking around at other instances, we're kind of in the hunt, if you will. We're right in the middle of versions. Probably over the break, which we haven't talked about yet.
I was going to say, we got a little bit of free time coming up. So it's, I mean, if it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen while we have a little bit of free time. I say we, while Dan has a little bit of free time. Don't blame me for any of the good stuff that happens over there. That is all Dan. And the only time that Lemmy ever went down was not Dan's fault.
That's true. We got it back. We totally got it back. That was a whoopsie-doodle.
Yeah, outside of like the 4 seconds it takes to reboot the thing. The only time that it ever actually went down was not
this. So I'm told on the next update, it might take a little longer than normal with the database stuff happening in the background. It's doing little migration bits. So it might take a little longer than normal. So that's one of the reasons why I've held off, because I just haven't had the time to sit in front of the thing while it was happening.
Right. Yeah, we'll talk about reading the news.
Yep. I'm glad I read
soon.
those news things, and there's some that I should have read, yes.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. So, news coming up.
Anyway, we appreciate your support. Thank you.
By the late 90s, Linux was in full swing. Communities had sprouted up and new distributions were coming online seemingly every day. By this time, we had already seen some big names like Slackware and Debian emerge, and then others joined later, like Red Hat, Caldera, Mandrake, SUSE, and many others. Some are still here, and others have faded away. But soon another idea, unlike any other that had any modicum of success, would take shape. It all started on a server running a Pentium 166 on Debian. That would be 1.3, codename Bo, at the University of New Mexico. Daniel Robbins used this box to dive into Linux and learn as much as possible. Soon, he was installing Linux at home, too. And not just Debian, everything that was out there. Finally, just as with anybody trying all the Linux things, the dust settled, and Stampede Linux, a distribution briefly based on Slackware but independent shortly after, was the soft landing spot. It helped that Stampede used the PGCC compiler that was optimized for Pentium processors and gave a huge speed boost to the chip, but it was also an opportunity for Daniel to take this knowledge he'd been learning and put it to good use. For the betterment of his new favorite distribution, and more importantly, for the community around it. He'd benefited from the knowledge of those that knew more, turned around and used that knowledge to help others. And now it was time to give back to the developers too. He started work on SLP, the Stampede Linux package format, improved it and extended it to include many features in a version 6. While the head developers loved the work, others derided it. And that, the community aspect of development, led to Daniel's ultimate departure from the distribution. But without that derision, we wouldn't be where we are today. On the other side of all of that, Daniel continued to work on Stampede, but with a new goal in mind. Transform what he had into something totally new. Something performant and light, yes, but also something unlike distributions that were already out there. And at least at first, it all needed to be done alone. Automation was key, removing the repetitive tasks so focus can remain on the new and interesting bits. A name, meant to be temporary, was chosen for a big part of this automation. eBuild. It would patch, compile, and install. And soon enough, an entire system could be built using these scripts. When a system emerged, it was called Enoch. Through the flood of trials that presented themselves during this process, a renewed focus on submitting bugs upstream, especially to kernel developers, solidified. This distribution wouldn't let patches waste away in semi-hidden SRPMs or half-open repositories. Community really was the focus. After a little time, Enoch gave way to Gentoo. Chosen for the simple fact that the Gentoo penguin is the fastest swimming penguin there is. But more adversity struck before Gentoo could really get on its feet. A new box, equipped with a Celeron 366, overclocked of course, started running into issues in Linux when idle. Frequent lockups soured Daniel's perception of Linux, and he needed a break. And the BSD folk over at FreeBSD were doing a wonderful job of making an operating system. And wouldn't you know it, the idle bug didn't exist on that side of the fence. But BSD wasn't meant to be. But it wasn't all for nothing. Better documentation, a faster networking stack, and more importantly, the BSD ports trees their way of compiling and installing software, really stuck. But BSD's lack of desktop focus, hardware support, and file system speeds enticed Daniel back over to the Linux side with a newer, less buggy development rig to use. And just in time for the Linux kernel 2.4 series, too. In late 2000, work on Gentoo ramped up. The eBuild system had taken in ideas from the BSD port system to become portage. And now, it was full steam ahead to 1.0 with a release candidate 2, and sustainability of the project had made its way to the forefront. The Gentoo website throughout this time was changed up a little between 2000 and August 2001. Its final form, for a while, was reached on August 14th with the addition of proper written news instead of terse updates. By this time, the Gentoo 1.0 release had been in the works for over a year, with the 6th release candidate available at the end of the month. But it wouldn't be until March 3rd of 2002 that public-facing movement would easily spotted. It was the eBuilds freeze for the 1.0 release. Then, on the last day of March, 1.0 was finally released. And 8 days later, 1.1a followed it to continue the work and solidify the status of the project as a rolling release. In May, after news of the major release was flung far and wide, the huge influx of new users it encouraged caused bandwidth issues for Gentoo, and direct access to most things was revoked. Instead, users were instructed to the new DNS round-robin style load balancing to even things out. But this meant that people using the not too terribly old Portage 1.8.8 and earlier needed to dig in and fix some things. Or, if you were lucky enough to have kept up and upgraded past that version, a simple configuration file change would do. Robin said of the issue,
"Of course, I'm very sorry for the sudden inconvenience. I hope you understand that Gentoo Linux's sudden growth has created its share of growing pains."
Another version, 1.2, was released in June with KDE 3 and GNOME 2 available in the Portage tree. And while GNOME was essentially hidden because of its beta status, it could easily be enabled and installed, and was actually fairly stable overall. In September, the only gaming edition of Gentoo by the team themselves was released. It was a self-booting, NVIDIA-compatible live CD that came pre-packed with the first-person shooter, Unreal Tournament 2003. It was demoed at the Linux World Conference and Expo the next year. In August of 2003, the first official 1.4 was released, again at the Linux World Expo, and 300 Gentoo CDs of various architectures were handed out in the first few hours of the show. It also marked the release of the Gentoo reference platform. That was a default set of build instructions to get a Gentoo system up and running quickly. It was noted that a full installation, including x386, GNOME, KDE, and OpenOffice, could be compiled in under an hour. This release was quickly followed up by a maintenance release a month later. 2004 marked a change from the dot releases like 1.4 to a date-based versioning scheme that was planned to be quarterly, with the first release in January. But development does what development does, which led to February 28th as the release for 2004.0, and brought along with it the Catalyst project, which was meant to allow anybody to make reliable Gentoo versions and even fully booting live CDs. This release was revealed alongside the Gentoo store, where one could find pre-built live CDs and the Gentoo installation handbook on disk. A couple days before the next point release was to be announced on April 28th, Daniel Robbins, the creator and founder, resigns from Gentoo. But not before establishing the Gentoo Foundation, incorporated in New Mexico, which would inherit all properties and be allowed to represent Gentoo as a not-for-profit entity. He noted his departure was from burnout and the inability to focus on Gentoo development. 2004.1 was released shortly after that news. .2 in July, .3 in November, marking better compatibility, newer tools and e-builds, and even more architectures. This would be the only time in Gentoo's history that 4 releases saw the light of day in a single year. 2005 and the next couple of years was outwardly relatively quiet, but was still steadily gaining popularity as proven by mass forum registration, both legitimate signups and accounts used only to attack the forum itself in January. On March 27th, 2005.0 released after a complete security rebuild. .1 followed in August with the code named El Nino. A media refresh was released in late November that would roll up the bug fixes since .1 that were too big to wait until next year's release. The first Gentoo Council was elected in September. 2006 saw 2 releases, one in February, .0, that could be grabbed as a live CD with a fully working GNOME environment built in, and one in August, .1, with newly separated desktop and server profiles from which to build a working system. After some time at Microsoft and other work, Daniel Robbins made his glorious return to the project, not as a benevolent dictator for life this time, but as a contributor to the AMD 64 architecture team. This lasted about 8 days before he resigned again, citing interpersonal conflict with other members of the development team, much akin to his time at Stampede. Mostly blamed by those in the project on growing too fast, too quickly, the cracks began to show, and other developers joined Robbins in his departure for similar reasons. This, unfortunately, marked the Gentoo project as unstable for onlookers, and what was, up until that point, constant developer growth. Certainly, much more than any attrition the project was experiencing up until that point, took a large and marked downturn from which it never recovered. In the rest of 2007, there was only a single release, .0, in May, codenamed Secret Sauce. Much later in the year than planned, and was caused by a barrage of security bugs upstream that needed to be fixed or updated before release. It also included a completely new version of the Gentoo Linux installer on the live images. However, this year wasn't only marked by delays, but the Foundation suffered too, as some of the documentation required to remain in good standing as a not-for-profit never made it to the New Mexico authorities, which led to the Foundation falling into bad standing. Elections would soon be held for new trustees so that this issue wouldn't creep up again. The next year, in 2008, one final point release would be issued before a change. .0 in July, codenamed It's Got What Plants Crave. It included new profiles to base the system on and a move from GNOME to XFCE on the live media. A .1 was initially planned for later in the year, but September marked a big change in that regard. Donnie Burkholz noted,
Gentoo will focus on a more back-to-basics approach that will give you up-to-date install media on a regular basis and make much better use of our human resources. We're looking into automated weekly builds of the minimal CDs and staged tarballs, as well as maybe an annual live CD release.
In 2009, 2.5 releases were noted. 10.0, which was a departure from the year.release structure before, but no new work was done in August and October, a live DVD release followed. The release was mostly cosmetic, and users didn't need to do much. The number 10 in the version marked the 10th anniversary of Gentoo. A few days later, on October 10th, 10.1 was released as a bug fix release for the previous live media. There were no new releases in 2010, but this was just as well, since it allowed year-type versioning to resume, but without the 20 in front. This didn't mean that development stopped, just that the newest hardware would require bootstrapping with other types of media. 11.0, released in 2011, became the only release for the year on April 8th, 2011. While development seemed to stall in 2008, this year marked the end of the Gentoo reference platform as it no longer showed up in later Gentoo handbooks. 2012 saw 3 releases. A new live DVD released at the very beginning of the year marked 12.0, and 12.1, which was released on April 1st with an install wizard webcam joke embedded into the live DVD when the date is or is set to April 1st. And a final release at the end of December named Gentoo Linux End of World Edition. The final 2 were certainly real releases, but with a silly twist. 2013 saw the deprecation of the 10. Profiles and migrated to new 13.0 profiles for various architectures and required a little fiddling to upgrade. No new live media was minted. 2014, on the other hand, did see a new live DVD named the Iron Penguin Edition in August. In 2015, another joke to add to the pile. A new website was announced. It was billed as a more inclusive website than the previous and sported a whopping 16 total colors and was best viewed at the resolution of 640 by 200 in 2015. What an improvement. After the air was cleared, an actual new website was unveiled and it lives on in the same form today. In 2016, 2 live DVD-backed editions of Gentoo were released. In May, there was Gentoo Choice Edition. And while, yes, you had many choices, this choice was synonymous with best. Then in July, Choice Edition Part 2. In July of 2017, the Gentoo folks released a joke announcement referencing a Weird Al Yankovic song, Word Crimes.
This is a public service announcement to remind our community to be on the alert for word crimes. We hate to see words abused in terrible ways in our documentation, but you can help. You can stop this abuse. If you see a word crime, be sure to make things right. Simply perform the following steps. 1. Log in. 2. Click Edit. 3. Stop the crime from happening. 4. Click Save Page. Stay vigilant and have a great summer.
This was followed up by a pair of profile updates, 17.0 in November, that required manual intervention in the weeks after the project moved to GCC 6, and an experimental 17.1 in December, to facilitate both 32 and 64-bit libraries in 64-bit systems. 2018 saw no releases, but the developers did experience an issue on GitHub where code was mirrored. An attacker was able to get access to the repository by means of password guessing. It was reported that nothing else related to Gentoo was compromised and things were back to normal in about 5 days. 2019 saw the 17.1 profiles finally stabilize and upgrade was encouraged. In 2021, the addition of 20 profiles were released for the RISC-V architecture, and a non-news yet still in the profile list 22.0 profile for Long Arch sometime later. The latter 2 would only be temporary. While all the real moving and shaking was happening, mostly in the Gentoo news articles, one last practical joke was pulled on April 1st, 2021. Gentoo wasn't Gentoo anymore. It was Genchoo, a kawaii little mouse.
After many years, it's time for a radical overhaul. So here we present our new brand. Gentoo Linux becomes Gentoo Linux. Gentoo is also our new mascot. As you can see in the very kawaii graphics, definitely a big improvement over our boring old stylized letter. New artwork is still under construction, but we already have lots of wallpapers available for enthusiastic fans. Enjoy!
At the end of 2023, a late Christmas present for those of us with less than 32 cores. Precompiled binaries for more packages were announced. And in March of 2024, new profiles, after years of subtle and behind-the-scenes upgrades, are finally released. Profile version 23.0. Now, the future isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Unfortunately, Mikhail Gurney notes in his blog a few days before recording here that Gentoo has a problem, one that many other distributions and projects face. One of developer burnout, bit rot, and a stale number of new developers onboarding. But that doesn't mean Gentoo is gone. Gentoo is still forging ahead. And as I look behind me, Gentoo is still running.
Same here. You can catch all the great topics as they unfold on our Lemmy subreddit or our news channel on Discord. Those are all, linuxuserspace.show/Lemmy, Reddit, Discord, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Twitch, Twitter. We've got it all. We're everywhere. We cover it all. So if you want to give us some feedback, catch the topics, you can do that in those places. Join the conversation, stay in touch with the news as it happens and unfolds.
Especially because there's going to be a little bit of a break for a little bit. So if you want to know how the show is going to be shaping up for the next season,
if that happens,
yeah, it would be a good idea to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Yeah, and you can communicate with us real time in a lot of those places and tell us what you want to see and what you're hearing in the Linux verse.
So one of the things that I saw over and over and over again was that community, it seems, is much more important than the development behind all of that. Because Daniel's decision to leave in 2004 didn't have much to do with community there. That was more burnout. But when he came back in 2007, he kind of ricocheted off some of the developers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then again, later on in the 2010s, this happened to him back in Stampede as well, where the developers were taking on his contributions with open arms, but yet he had lower level developers or other developers in general hanging on and nagging. And he defines them as freaks in some of his early writings.
Don't feed the trolls, right? And that's one of the things to take away.
Well, that is an important rule that you should never, ever, ever do. And I regret not spending more time kind of reading through the drama, though, the drama is the drama.
But you got a limited amount of time. We've only had a year.
Yeah, well, it's impressive the amount of drama that can happen over, what is it, a little over 20 years now, right? I mean, the thing was started in 1999 off of the back of drama.
Right.
And then over the next 20 some odd year, 23, 25, whatever years, there can be a lot of drama.
Yeah, well, listen, though. I mean, here's the thing. The deeper the passion, the higher the tension. That's all there is to it, right?
I think that's a big part of it, right? I mean, and especially for developers that dive headlong into their passion, you get burned out. And that's going to push you away. But anyway, all that to say, there's a lot of drama in, if you go perusing through, just check out some of the links in the original episode's show notes. You're going to see there's a whole heck of a lot of developer drama that happened. But I'm not here to dwell on developer drama. I'm here to tell you about the journey that both Dan and I have had over the past year. Quite literally. Dan, you did it longer than I did. I think
a little over a year now.
Yep. I'm confident in saying you spent approximately 13 months
pretty close
on Gentoo.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And I had cold feet, so it took me a little longer to get in. I spent approximately, let's say a little over 11 months on Gentoo. So
Yeah, you're pretty close to the year mark. Yeah, really close.
Right. Well, if you average Dan's 13 with my 11 point something, we come around to about a year. And honestly, if you can get a running Gentoo system and update it once without it bursting into flames in front of you, then I'm inclined to say that you're a pretty decent Gentoo user.
Yeah. I mean, and if you get a few of those under your belt, then you're definitely, you're going to make it. You got this,
I don't know what the Gentoo users that have been Gentoo users for years are going to say about this, but I consider myself a pretty decent Gentoo user. Well, Dan, would you?
Yeah, I think I qualify there as well. I still learning things on a daily, like we learned today, even, still.
That's okay.
So
we'll get to that.
We will get to that. But I mean, but that's true. But the point is, this is not. They come right out and say it, which some other distributions do not. This is not designed for everyone. Really is not, and they're very open about it. The tinkerers like us, and the developers, that's really what this is targeting, because those are the people that want to take the time to actually make the system theirs, taking effort to make it happen. And it does take effort. I don't care who you are. It takes effort.
Yeah. Have you done Arch from scratch, not using the Arch installer? Have you done that? It's harder than that.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean that is very apparent from the very get-go.
It gives you a lot of options, and there's a lot of ways to go off in a different direction real quick.
Yeah, easily. But here's the thing that gets me, is that even in the Gentoo handbook, it straight up says you can use an Arch ISO.
You can.
And I think the reason that got added to the handbook is because Gentoo went a good long time without a new live release.
Right.
And that meant that unless your hardware was supported by that kernel that may be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months old, then you're not booting.
Right.
So what you need to do is go grab something that is a little more up to date, like an Arch ISO, use that to then help you bootstrap, and then just download the rest of the bits and just kind of build your Gentoo system as you go. That already is something that I think a lot of folks that are running Linux, and I would say the vast majority of folks that run Linux, would not even bother with.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
For good reason.
And it's not as much of a big deal now, but, much of what your system is comprised of that you're installing is pulled down from the internet, right? You pull down the bulk of that real time when you're doing it. It's not sitting on the CD or DVD or ISO image or any of that. You have a little bit to get you going, but it's not pulling the packages and stuff from there necessarily. It's pulling that down in that stage 3 tarball that you pull down from the internet.
Exactly. And I think that this is a big reason why I think Gentoo was kind of bolstered by Arch existing in 2002, a couple of years after Gentoo was really fully started. And they're different, right? Arch provides precompiled binaries and Gentoo doesn't. Well, until recently, really.
But not all of them.
They did a little, some, and then more now.
Right.
But, having that helped folks that may have had newer hardware kind of just get bootstrapped and get going. But I learned a lot.
Oh, for sure. I learned a lot too. And it's like, I thought I knew a lot before I started. I don't think I profess to know everything. Not going to say that. But I already thought I knew a lot. And I still yet learned a lot more. There's more bumpers on the lane for Arch than there is for Gentoo. Yeah.
I think so. And while you do have to depend on Arch News for some things, like, the Grub thing a few years ago.
Yeah, they've had some things. Yeah.
Gentoo is much more like Slackware.
Oh, yeah.
In that it is a very old school style of, my man, you better read the news.
Yes, you should.
there are going to be things that come down in the news that if you don't deal with, if you don't handle, your system will break. And in a very spectacular way.
The only things that went wrong for me were because I didn't read. And
yeah,
I know I made that choice and did that wrong.
Yeah.
Very quickly afterwards. Yep.
Yeah. 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 And, that's actually something that we kind of came up to. It turned so full disclosure, as I'm pulling the history together, I'm realizing both Dan and I are on 17.1, I believe.
Yeah, that was the last profile.
That we're living on. It came out late 2017, early 2018. I think 2018 was really kind of when the experimental version of that profile, 17.1, was released, and then in 2019 it was kind of finalized. And so that is the profile that we ended up on because both Dan and I started in 2023 with this machine, with this one install. And I had one install. Dan, you had one install.
I had two. So I had a VM and I had a on a machine. So yeah, I had two.
Then full disclosure, I had two too. Then I started with a VM, kind of tinkered around with that, and then about a month later, I just dropped it on this machine back here.
Yep.
And so for about 10 months, this machine has been emerging Gentoo every now and then.
Right.
But in February, the rumblings of a new profile, 23, came out. And I'm not one that is like, oh, check the news today. Oh, check the news today. Oh, check the news today.
No, guilty.
But once a month, maybe twice, maybe once every other month, even check the news, and you'll kind of have an idea what's going on. But we kind of ran into a situation where,
but life got us right. You get a little busy. I don't know. We were making things go, but we weren't. Didn't have as much time to devote to some of the extracurriculars, if you will.
Right. And I mean, at least on a stable Gentoo, it's not like you emerge the entire system every couple of weeks or anything like that. But the thing that I ran into was, and if you'll select news list all, I ran into a situation where my news stops.
Yeah, in February, right?
February of this year on the Grub updates thing.
Right.
And I run into that issue now. So, actually, I need to go in and add Grub to my use flags. And then, things will be cool. But right now, what I'm doing is just, Grub install, Grub make whatever it is to get the new kernel in. And I'm on 6.6, right? It's the newest long term. We're good. I'm on a Gentoo stable, so we're good. But apparently, there have been a good maybe half dozen news articles that came out after this Grub thing, and
anyway.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I know.
And the big thing was the new profile.
Yeah, we missed that memo.
What? How?
I don't know. We did.
Select news list all. What did I do wrong? How is the news not coming down to me? What am I missing? I looked. I looked into select news -- help, and there's no way to say give me the news. I'm missing some news articles. What do I do to get it?
Yeah.
Give me the news. Because you go to Gentoo news.
Yeah, there's several that show up there. Yes.
It's about it's a half dozen. Install kernel no longer implicitly installed. And then on March 22nd, the news article came out. Profile upgrade to version 23.0 available. And there's a window. There's actually a window where you need to be on that new profile and user merged if you're on System D to continue on without having to worry about your Gentoo breaking. And
yeah, essentially they give you 2 months before they deprecate the old profiles.
Well, it's been 2 months, Dan.
Oh, we're over that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it's deprecated.
What am I gonna do?
So then, after a year of that status, then they actually remove those profiles and they're gone. So you got a window where before it becomes deprecated, and then you got a slightly bigger window before it's just going to get yanked away from you.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like it's not fixable. I mean, you
It
can
is
certainly
fixable.
still
Takes a
figure
little
out
more
how to
work.
cobble it together. Yeah, it does. It will. To kind of cobble it together and get moving forward again. You don't have to like nuke your system and start
Right.
over, though that wouldn't be a terrible thing.
Sometimes they actually say it in there, depending on how far, diverged you are, it might actually be easier to reinstall. It says that. It actually says that.
I don't think I'm too far gone.
I don't think I am.
I haven't done the user merge thing yet, though I did put that off. That is on me. But even in the profile upgrade thing in March, it said that do it after you move, and then do a user merge thing.
Right.
So, right, I'm not that far back. I don't think I'm in an unsalvageable situation. Nope. But why? My question really is, how come I didn't get the profile upgrade to version 23 available news article? Why did it stop in?
There's probably some update procedure for that, and we just missed the memo
February.
on how to do that. I don't know what we did it wrong, but we did.
You think so?
I'm gonna say I did it wrong because of my noobness. Even so, like it goes back to how we started this conversation. Even after a year, though? I still feel like a newbie.
Well, I agree with that. I will definitely agree with that. I still don't even know how to use EIX properly. Mm-hmm. So, but that's a third party thing. That's like a feature add, a value add thing, right? Like, but still, there are certainly things about Gentoo I don't get, and I'm not saying that I'm. This is Gentoo's fault.
No,
it very well could be my fault that I didn't get this message, but it feels like the news should come down to you regardless of the state of your system.
Yeah, it seems like it's simple stuff that should just, text file in your face.
Right. Like, even if it's on me to do the merging and make the changes, like, I shouldn't ever really stop getting the news. So what happened there? Okay, so that's just going to be a question I keep asking forever until I figure out what the heck actually went wrong. So, if maybe this happened to you, I don't know. But if you know what the heck I might have done to deserve this situation.
Or not done, right? Yeah, there's probably something that
there's a step I missed.
Tell it to bring my nose down.
Yeah. So, all right. So, outside of that, I did successfully emerge the rest of my system. I'm on a current, as far as I can tell, kernel. My system is up to date. There's nothing after an emerge. Is it query? What is it? Sync. Emerge sync. There's nothing to do. My system is up to date. So, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good too. Like, all of the issues I've had, I've kept it running. It's still going. You can see it. You can see it behind me, right?
Crashed. It does boot.
It boots. It does its thing. It's got a desktop environment. I mean, that's those are substantial things. Like, I mean, I got the Firefox. I can do web browsing. I've got Discord. I've got all the stuff that I normally would use.
So now you're listening all these software. So how did you get Firefox? How are you doing that?
So Firefox I actually got from the repository. It's not a Flatpak. It's not the tar ball. It's actually from the repository. And so
okay. So this is the Gentoo branded.
Right. It is
Firefox.
The binary version. They've had that for a while, so it is the binary version, so I don't have to compile Firefox. Because, I've got a potato laptop, right? So I mean,
how long does it take for you to emerge Qt WebKit or whatever?
Know. I start that stuff and I go to bed and it's done the next day.
Me too.
When I go to use it, I don't even sit there in front of it when it's going, which is maybe some of the reason why I miss some of the notifications of things is because I wasn't sitting there watching it and entirely the whole time. So
but still, I'm saying, give me all the news and there's missing stuff. Right. So, I don't even know that watching it would help you. But I do the same thing. I'll start an emerge and then throughout the day, I'll start it in the morning because I like to see just scrolly text. That's just cool to me. So I'll check in on it every few hours, and I'm like, oh, here it is. Oh, here it is. But one thing, WebKit GTK is one thing that I came back like 3 times, and it was still on WebKit GTK.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like, well, gotta
Okay,
toot
yeah.
about this.
Mhm. Yeah, no, some of the things take longer than others. For the most part, though, most of the updates weren't too bad. And even though they took a little while, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
I don't mind.
It
Yeah.
was like I said, I started up, go do something else, come back, and it's done. I'm happy. So it didn't really interfere with my process, and it's nice because it doesn't haunt you about updating. So you can kind of do it at your pace. You still want to do it in a timely fashion, but
Well, it's like Slackware, and then it's like, man, that's your system. You bet. I mean,
yeah, that's
you
you.
update it. You
It's
update it.
It's
I mean,
all
it's-
yours.
It's
And
not
so-
on me.
We talked. You mentioned Arch, right? And it's a little harder than Arch. In addition to that, so Arch does give you path to make your own system, if you will.
Yeah.
Essentially, Gentoo does that as well. Only it goes further and it lets you build the packages the way you want them built.
Yeah.
So that's taking it to the next level. And that's kind of cool. I think that has a place for things, people, and the way they want their systems to run.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, though, it does take a lot more effort. You cannot be lazy here. And there are a lot of times where I just want to be lazy. Not going to lie. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that'll bite you if you're not careful. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It definitely will, man. Like, you have to be okay with system administration. And
That's right.
That's okay. Some people like to actually do that
Yeah.
kind of thing. I think generally that's really not me. But I'm not put off.
But yeah, like all the learning that we did to go along with that, I'm super appreciative of that experience. So
Yeah.
Gentoo has given me something that you can't take away now.
Yeah.
And it's nice to know how all that stuff's put together and just that was good. I'm not disappointed at all with the experience that we've had.
No, and I think even so far, at least for me, I think I might actually keep a Gentoo around.
Yeah, that's got a good possibility.
But here's the thing. I don't think I'll use Gentoo in the way that I think Gentoo was intended to be used.
Right.
I mean, there's like an e-build for Flatpak, though. So, I mean, like, I can't even really say that. But I've been really into the atomics here lately.
Mhm.
And, just not even caring about the system at all. And just updating the
Yeah.
Flatpaks on top. And, the system will get just blah, the whole system
whole
onto.
system, yeah.
Right. Maybe that's how I'm going to actually start treating Gentoo, is to get Gentoo to compile me a usable base system. And it has everything, right? It has the codecs underneath, has the graphic stuff underneath, make sure I can do and run everything, but then like plop Flatpak on top and then just not worry about the user side stuff.
Sure.
So compile my system and then all the user stuff is over here.
It's not a bad approach because like you can make the system as lean as you want. So I
Right.
mean, and by lean I mean as minimal, write down just to the things you want, compiled in the way you want, and so you can
Yeah.
you can really trim it up as far as you want to go with it. The fewer things you have, the easier it is to update and keep up to date. So that's not a bad approach, I don't think. I think it's a good way to go.
I think the difference between me and somebody that might traditionally run Gentoo is that they may be running Gentoo to be able to rip out all the cruft.
Right.
And like, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this. So I'm not going to compile it with those flags. I'm not going to do those use flags. I'm not going to have any of this. I'm the opposite, where it's like, all right, you know what? I just need to figure out what use flags I need to be able to get everything that I want. So you know what? Blap. Here's a bunch of use flags.
Yeah, but I mean, in a way that makes sense, right? So yeah, we've
Right.
both got VMs. Probably, I'm not getting rid of my VM. That's just not happening.
Yeah.
Because why not? It's no big deal.
That's not going anywhere. I'm keeping it on the laptop. If I can
Yeah.
resurrect it
It'll-
up to 23, I'm going to do it.
I'll probably keep it on the laptop too, but
And by the way, if you frequent the live streams, or if you even care about like the Gentoo thing, I think this might be what we do. The care and feeding of moving from profile 17.1 to 23 on the next live stream, maybe.
Yeah, or one of the next ones anyway. Yeah.
We gotta, yeah, right. Like we're gonna do this. I'm gonna make sure this is up to 23, and if we can do it without me starting over,
that'd be great.
Yeah, great. But I've got to start over. I guess I do want to keep a Gentoo around for this reason, so that I can treat it like an immutable.
Sure, that's an interesting experiment. Honestly,
I'm gonna keep it as an antimutable.
Antimutable.
Yeah, it is the exact opposite
new.
of
We
an
just
immutable.
created that right there on the fly. That's cool.
Yeah, antimutable.
Okay. No, I mean, I don't know if that's a bad thing. But going back to my VM and then talking about compiling packages the way you want them to be compiled, it makes sense there because, like, I don't need things like Bluetooth, right? There is no Bluetooth. I'm not passing that through to my VM.
Right.
That's just silly. So, I don't need to compile everything with Bluetooth support. I can get rid of that, and I can make it the way it needs to be to fit the system that I have it installed. And I like that. I'm okay with that. The thing I don't care for is I can't get lazy with this one. I really got to pay attention, and I got to follow along. I can't just, apt update and be done with it.
To Gentoo's credit on that front, I mean, the two changes that really made me work is going to be the user merge thing and the update to profile 23, which happened over a span of approximately 5 years. So it's not like they're rapid firing.
They are not.
Like,
no.
You better.
You still got to watch though, right?
Right.
So it lulls you into it. I guess that's where I'm at. You go 10 months and you didn't have any of these breaking changes, and then all of a sudden you've got one and you weren't watching it. So that's the bugaboo. Yep.
Right. I mean, look, you just do what I did. You image the system. You just have a full-on image.
Right.
And then, like, when you blow it up, you just replace it with the old image and try again.
Well, you should do that anyway, right? Especially if it's a production type of thing. You should totally have a regular backup scheme of some
It's
sort.
close enough. It's close enough. I don't want it to go anywhere, so I image it every now and then.
Right.
And that's the idea, right? So, I mean, it's not as easy as an atomic. I can't just, arrow down a couple times and hit enter and then have a new working system.
No, but it doesn't have to be a lot harder.
Right. And so, I mean, okay, that process takes me 20 minutes because I have to plop the system back on the disk. But I still have a working system at the end of the day, and it works okay. And I just need to put more effort into the care and feeding of a Gentoo than I do any other kind of system.
Listen, 20 minutes is a lot faster than a whole reinstall process, right? Because it took us days.
A while.
It took us days to really get it to where we wanted it.
Sure did.
In a usable state. So, doing a little image up, backup, that's fine. I can handle that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It takes about 20 minutes to image the system on a slow flash drive, and then 20 minutes to put it back. But
yeah. Well, my VM is a lot faster, so there's that.
Oh yeah, because you got SSDs and stuff, man. You're cheating.
In a way, yeah.
I've got a crappy flash drive. This is where Gentoo lives when I explode it. That's where it lives. Okay,
well, I've got a spinning drive, USB drive it's big, so I've got a couple of systems on it. So that's typically where if I'm doing it on a physical machine, I'm using like RescueZilla to just put that over on my big USB storage.
That's the deal, man. RescueZilla is a fantastic operating system for that. It uses part clone underneath, and it will just make sure you have a working system no matter what you accidentally do.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So we got to figure this out. But, in the meantime, my Gentoo is fairly minimal. You can see, well, I don't know if you squint in the video, maybe you can see 745 megabytes running full fat GNOME right there. 745 megabytes. My system has Flatpak installed. I have all of the regular user kind of software I have runs on Flatpak over there. It all runs okay. I haven't really run into any kind of super weird issue or anything like that. I think the couple of things that I did, you just add a use flag, recompile a couple things, emerge the world, and then it recompiles a couple things, and you're good.
Sometimes you got to update some config things.
Yeah.
With the config update tool. Depending. Those are the ones you got to watch out for. They aren't system breaking, but application breaking potentially. So you got to watch out for those. Those aren't too bad though. The one thing
that I think was really kind of the crux of my Gentoo kind of sadness was that there are things that aren't in the handbook that just seem to be innate knowledge to people that run Gentoo.
Probably are. We definitely got some help along the way, right? I'm not going to deny that.
Right.
And so there were things that people just knew, hey, this is what we've picked up along the way. Not that you're doing it entirely wrong, but there might be an easier way or a shortcut that it doesn't describe all of those things.
Right. Right. And I mean, I feel like a lot of these people have kind of run into the bumpers and weird stuff and issues that they've kind of either figured out by themselves or, in the community, you kind of learn these things.
So there are places to go do that, and they're very good and usually very helpful. I've watched the IRC channel, not super intensely, but I've seen the interactions over there, and the people are very helpful to get folks back on track. Silly mistakes that we're making, similar to that, right? And they're like, oh, have you done this? Have you tried that? Change this config file. Oh, use that tool for that type of thing. And so you can get some very good support. There's a forum. You can get on there. The wiki and the handbook, both of those are just absolutely fantastic. And I'll say that as things that you might even use them, even if you're not running Gentoo, there's some good tips and guides to help you.
How that stuff works.
Yep. And so a lot like the Arch wiki, the stuff that Gentoo publishes is also very, very good. Yep.
Yeah. So I think bottom line with Gentoo, I mean, something that we talked about in the history, the entire reason that Gentoo exists is because of the community. The community is what makes Gentoo what it is. And if you want to make a Gentoo, you're going to have to lean on the community to be able to fully understand what a Gentoo does and how to get the most out of a Gentoo. I mean, I just posted hey, I'm doing the final update of my thing, and the amount of people that were just helpful,
right?
About, oh, did you know there was a binary for that? Or hey, Qt WebKit's actually, or WebKit GTK is actually not that big. They're way bigger.
Yeah,
way
there's
bigger
some
things
that are bigger than that. Yeah, they'll take you even longer.
Exactly.
Buckle
and then, hey, did you know that, what you should do with your threads to make compiling faster is go however many threads you possibly have -2. Did you know that was the
right.
How you should be doing that? There are a couple of options that you might want to add to your emerge to be able to make that faster. And that's the kind of thing.
They didn't poo-poo off the use of binaries.
No.
So they were saying binaries might be a really good way to go.
Right.
Especially if you're on that underpowered machine and you don't want to sit there and compile all night long. But
I like the warmth.
Yeah, but the thing is you don't always realize the performance boost that you once did. And that was a lot of the reason of, doing the compilation.
We're not using PGCC anymore to get, 10-20% leaps and bounds of performance on a Pentium anymore.
You might on some of the newer systems, you might eke out a little bit more performance. But if you got an older one, those binaries probably just fine as far as performance-wise. You're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
Especially things I know I elected to go with the kernel, precompiled kernel, and obviously I've done Firefox as well. So both of those they're kind of big. They can be a little tedious. So pulling in the binary is a little faster, and you're not gonna notice a difference. So you might as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. The performance edge that Gentoo may have once had has kind of dwindled down. You still get a performance.
You do.
Obviously, you get a
definitely
performance increase, but I mean, when we're looking at the graphs today as opposed to, in 2004,
it's almost not enough to justify it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you're spending all this time kind of strapping it together and putting all the work in to make it work together, and then reading the news and making sure that your system is fully administrated and dealing with all that kind of thing. I mean, if you like to do that kind of thing, continue doing that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that kind of thing. But I think the performance gains that you get out of it aren't really the reason anymore.
Probably
it's the customization that you get with a Gentoo that you cannot get. Even with an Arch, you can't get the amount of customization you can get.
I think there's only one step beyond this, and I don't intend to do that one right away.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to write a package manager. Portage is fine.
Yeah, so that would be Linux from scratch. That'd be the next way to take it deeper, and I don't know.
Look, if the general consensus with Linux from scratch is that you build a system and then integrate Portage, and at that point you just have Gentoo.
Yeah.
So why not just run Gentoo?
Yeah.
Gentoo is the last stop on the train to administration. If you want to see how a system is put together, use all the tools that are built around Gentoo, man.
Yeah.
And it's a long learning road. Me and Dan spent a year with this distribution, and we still don't got it.
Nope.
So there's much more to do. And I think if you spend more time than both Dan and I did on it, then sure, you probably have it in a year. But there's a lot to do.
I see some value in keeping it around, and I'm always about getting more knowledge, and I think this is an avenue to do that. So I'm really excited about that as well.
I'm going to do it. That's not going anywhere. I'm going to keep that on there as long as I possibly can do it. And then if I can't, then I'm just going to start over.
Hey, here's an experiment that I wanted to do. We talk about binaries. I actually kind of want to try to do one with as many binaries as I possibly can, just to see how it goes, right? I mean, I'm just kind of curious.
Your emerge world is going to be so vast.
So you can catch all the links at linuxuserspace.show. And if you want to contact us, even in the off season, you can send us an email, contact@linuxuserspace.show, or you can go to linuxuserspace.show/contact, and that'll also get to us. I mean,
That's right. You don't even have to have a return email there. You can just send.
It's a little more anonymous if you want to go that route.
Send the memes.
And that's Linux User Space. Yeah, that's the place.
.show.
And so, come on by, send us a message, and give us some feedback. Tune us up for the next season or the next time or the next live stream, whatever. Yeah, just send us some messages. So, Leo, this is season finale.
That's it. It's the end. We're taking a break. We're gonna be out of pocket for a little bit.
This season it's been great.
I was gonna say, if you do the history of Linux user space, you'll realize this was the longest season. It wasn't longer, like as in content wise,
but we stretched it out. Yeah, time. Yep.
Life, man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep. So we are going to do a little break. We'll let you know when we're coming back, if we come back, and we'll let you know what some of our topics are. Because if we come back, we'll probably start off with a topic show. I think that's the best way.
I think
get right back into it. And I think we've got an idea for a history possibility. I don't know if we want to unveil that, but we can.
You know what? Yeah. Let's if we come back, the idea is to dive back into the desktops thing, because
we didn't finish that.
If you've been following along with this show for a little while, you've probably heard me say on more than one occasion that, Dan, I want to go back and I want to do Linux Mint history. Well, we're not doing that, but what we are doing is, at least the idea is, to do the history of the Cinnamon desktop,
which obviously Linux Mint is very tied to, right?
I was gonna say,
they offer some other desktop environments, but the main one, Cinnamon.
I got it done. Guys, we did it. We're doing Linux Mint history. Yeah!
You sneak it in there somehow, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's the deal, right? Like, you can't have Cinnamon history without the history of Linux Mint. So, guys, we did it.
We did my favorite. LXD, LXQ. LXQ really is my favorite now. So we did that. We covered that. And we've covered some other ones that, I love too. So, we gotta share the love and give some back to Leo as well. So cinnamon is probably where we're gonna go with our next history episode. Yeah. That won't be the first episode that we have when we come back. That'll be topics. So that's our plan.
After this, there's a break. So don't expect another episode in 2 weeks, even though that's when we normally come back. But do keep your ear to the ground on the old Twitters and the old Mastodons and the old Reddits and Lemmy and Matrix and Discord and all that kind of stuff. That way, you'll have an idea of when we're coming back. You'll know what we're going to be talking about. And again, steer the show the way you want it.
Yes.
It's a bit like Gentoo.
Yeah.
The community is a big part of what this show actually is. Me and Dan could do this offline because we have a good time regardless of if we ever actually produce a show. So if you want that show to hit the airwaves, let us know how you'd like it to be.
Yep, the podcast built for you. So Leo, where can we find you when you're not here?
Well, especially since we're going on break for a little bit, hopefully I can get back to the blog. And I'll definitely be posting a bit over at Leo Chavez at mastodon.social.
Yep.
What about you?
And you can find me at KC2BZ at mastodon.social. I don't have a blog, but, that's probably the Mastodon. That's probably the closest place to follow stuff from Dan. And you can find the podcast at Linux User Space at mastodon.social as well. So come back in, several weeks. We'll have more Linux User Space.
So until then, we'll see you later.
Thanks for watching.
It's gonna allow me to do what I've been telling you that I've wanted to do for a long time. Go back and start at the beginning and redo some of the ones that we spent 10 minutes on and spend 20 minutes on them. Because I go back, I've listened to those episodes again later on with the kind of the new glasses of how we do the show.
Well, we covered Mint. We didn't really talk about the desktop environment too in depth, right?
Did we really do the history of Mint? Because we talked about maybe like 3 or 4 of the hot topics of Mint.
I think we glossed over a lot of it. At that time, the snap removal was the big thing.
That was fresh.
Topic. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's why we probably did Mint, just so that Joe could...
it was. It was just right after. And then Joe liked to rail on the website before they updated it.
Oh,
it
God,
was terrible.
That's right.
That's
right. It's still not amazing, but
but it was really
it's more
bad.
modern.
Really bad.
Yeah. Wasn't that bad. Looks like the Gentoo site.